Thank you very much. It's yours, actually. But across boardrooms worldwide, one question keeps resurfacing. The old ways of doing business, are they still working? From digital-first companies challenging legacy giants to a workforce that demands flexibility and purpose, the traditional corporate structure is being tested. Agility now competes with stability, and innovation often pushes beyond regulation. Yet experience and experience, I beg your pardon, remains the bedrock of success. Right now, we have Dr. Samson Simon. He's the chief economist at ARKK Economics and Data Limited. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And let's focus on disruptions and disruptors. There are a lot of young, agile companies now that are giving the traditional companies that have been around for a long time a run for their money, especially in terms of financial services. We see in the fintechs and how they're challenging some of the traditional systems. So do you think that traditional corporate models can still compete, or does there need to be a shift?
Of course, there's a need for a shift. And as we have seen in the Nigerian financial sector, some of these banks have restructured, and they have the financial technology arm of these banks. Talk about, it used to be GT Bank, for example, is now GT Co, and the same thing for other banks. Because if they don't adapt to the changes, they'll be obsolete, they'll be out of business, and they will just be history. So there's a need for you to shift, there's a need for you to adapt, there's a need for you to innovate, there's a need for you to iterate if you really want to survive the new business environment.
And while there is that need for innovation, so there's sometimes the competition between we have existing structures, we have built a company culture, and that's standing in the way of innovation. How can there be a balance that we still maintain our company structure that we have taken years to build, our company culture as well, but we still give room for innovation? There's no friction that we're being innovative and then we lose the culture completely, or we're holding onto our structures and we're not innovative.
Well, I think it's a balancing act. You need to make sure that the essence of that firm or that company is maintained, but that doesn't mean that you should be so rigid to the extent that you're not welcoming any new ideas, you're not improving, you're not adapting, you're not iterating, you're not evolving. Because if you refuse to evolve, you can be as a dodo has been, you'll be obsolete, you'll not be in existence again. So while there's a need for you to maintain that structure, to make sure that you maintain, you're strong when there's risks, and you keep delivering the results that people have known you for, and you have a brand name to maintain, while you still do those things, you need to make sure that when new things come up, they don't just make you to become, they don't diminish you, they make you even better. They make you to grow and become more robust as new changes come in.
Indeed. And I think it'd be interesting to to draw from your experience when it comes to building these structures. Would you say it's easier to transform a legacy company from within, or it's easier to build something new from the ground up? Where would your thoughts lie with this?
Well, starting an entirely new company can be quite daunting. It's challenging because you don't have anything to start with. So you don't have customer base, you don't have a brand name, you don't have anything, right? It can be problematic looking at it from that angle. But it also has its own advantages in the sense that you're starting on a clean slate. So you have a tabula rasa, you can make it whatever you wish to make it. You have a vision, and that vision can be achieved. On the other hand, if you have an established company, you already have a war chest, you have a brand name, right? And maybe you have all the resources you need to succeed. You have the connect, you have the reach. However, if you're established, you may be stuck in the past. You may be stuck to your culture, corporate culture that probably has worked for you for a while and you don't want to change. So both ways they are hard, but I think it's harder if you are reinventing, because the problem with an established company that is trying to change is that there are some entrenched interests. There's culture that has been there, and there will be people that will fight you when you're trying to change it. So it's easier if you're starting a new company. Both of them are hard, but relatively it's easier to start all over again, to start a new company rather.
Indeed, and hopefully we see some of those companies spring up and culture being built correctly from the ground up. Another, would I say, puzzle, right? There's some that are saying that size is no longer an advantage, right? That if you look at what's happening, some of these smaller firms are finding it easier to adapt to some of these changes. What do you have to, say about that? And is there a way that perhaps the larger organizations can learn from the smaller firms, or how do they manage change compared to these smaller organizations?
All right, size does actually matter.
Is it an advantage when it comes to change?
It is a double-edged sword.
Okay.
Is double-edged in the sense that when you're big, you have the wherewithal, you have the resources to get things done, right? However, you may not be as agile, you may not be as nimble as a new or a smaller company, right? So the best thing for an established firm, for an incumbent, a legacy firm that has been there for long and has been delivering results, is that such a company should find a way to make itself more agile, more adaptive to new things, and try to see things the way a smaller company would. I remember Facebook, Zuckerberg wanted to do that, but you have to be careful so that you don't lose your essence, because there was a time people were complaining Facebook, for example, was becoming like Snapchat, right? So you don't lose your essence. You're Facebook or you're a particular company, while you're trying to be adaptive, while you're trying to make the most of the resources or the war chest that you have, you should ensure that you don't lose your essence, like one of the questions that you mentioned.
Yes. And coming to business models now, there are companies that have had business models that have worked for them for decades and probably are even, still working for them, but things are changing, right? So what would you say would be a real trigger that will convince boards that, okay, it's time to change, or, hold on to the old systems?
Well, if you are an established firm, everything is hunky-dory, people feel comfortable, they are complacent, right? But when the results start looking not so good, that's when people go into panic mode. But it's not wise for you to wait for that to happen. You don't have to wait for your market share to be reduced, or for your bottom line to be affected, or even the top line to be reduced or to be diminished. You should be able to foresee. You should be farsighted and look at trends. I remember a company like Amazon, it might be an established firm now, but how Jeff Bezos started Amazon was he realized how exponentially the internet was growing, and he realized that would be the future of the world, and he tried to make the most of it, and it has paid off well for him. In the same manner, if you're an established firm, try to look at trends. You have data, right? The data should guide you. You should be data dependent. Even if you're doing so well, that doesn't mean that things will remain that way. So you should be able to foresee challenges on the horizon and try to mitigate them or try to overcome them even before they happen. That way you can be a survivor and you can succeed for a very long time to come.
Beyond survival. We also know that there's a fine line between consistency and complacency. How do you think companies can know when either line is crossed?
Well, to be consistent is good. To be complacent might not be good. It connotes negativity. So that you need to balance. While you're consistent, it might actually become complacency. So you have to ensure that while being consistent is good, people have known you for something, right? You maintain that, and the customer loyalty is there, right? You should be open to changes. You should be open to new things. If you're open to new things, you can keep tweaking. You don't have to just change overnight, because you lose a lot of your customers or a larger chunk of your clientele. So the best thing is that you should be open to changes. Don't see change as a threat. See it as a friend, welcome it, and try to make the most of whatever changes that might be happening. For example, technology can be deployed. Don't limit yourself to the old ways of doing things, the brick and mortar way of doing things. So that way you can be sure that the future is yours.
Indeed. And looking at the times we're in right now, there's a lot of volatility, and we know that companies find it hard to plan around volatility and inconsistency, plan long term, right? So how can boardrooms, leadership plan in a time where things are constantly changing, plan long term, right? How can they ensure that their planning is flexible and not fixed and still accommodate the volatility and changes that are occurring?
Well, the only thing you can be sure of is change, that nothing is fixed, everything is flux. So as a company, while you have a vision, you see yourself achieving certain things or becoming big in future or bigger than you are at the moment. That doesn't mean that you should be fixed in the way that you want to achieve this particular vision. You should be open to taking a detour or taking another route if that particular route that you thought would take you to that goal doesn't work. You should be open. You should welcome changes. You should welcome problems. You should welcome difficulties. And while it's good you have a vision, you have a goal, right? The means to achieve that goal or arriving at that vision should not be fixed. You should be open to adapting to whatever that is thrown at you and making the most of whatever that you meet on the way. That way you can achieve your goal and have a fixed vision or goal without necessarily being inflexible.
And I'd like to draw you into another debate amongst directors. There are some directors that will say that if it's profitable, don't touch it. Then there's another class that will say reinvent before you are forced to. Where do you stand? Which side of the directors do you stand?
Well, I think I'll go with the latter. There's this popular saying that if it's unbroke, there is no need to fix. I'm paraphrasing anyway. So if something is not broken, some people feel there is no need for you to change it. But the truth is that you don't wait for something to break before you preempt whatever. You don't wait for it to happen. You don't wait for a disaster to happen before you take measures. You can preempt some of these things. So the best thing would have been for you to deploy your resources and try to foresee things before they become a problem. If you're making profit now, that doesn't mean that you continue to make profit forever. So you have to be open to challenges. You have to be. Problems will occur. Challenges will come. It's normal. You have to accept it and make the most of it. So don't assume that the same trajectory that you have now will remain in perpetuity, right? So try to make the most of anything that you have and try to preempt whatever challenge or problem that may occur in future.
And going forward, finally, what qualities do you think will distinguish the companies that don't just survive but thrive, especially as regards those who are creating change and those who are victims of the changes?
Well, there's this popular word, anti-fragility. Anti-fragility means clearly you're not fragile. So anti-fragility is not just not being fragile, it means that you're able to make the most of shocks, of problems, of challenges that might occur. That way, you can not only survive, or you will not only survive, you will thrive. So problems, challenges, shocks, and a lot of things will naturally happen. So you should not just try to avoid them or try to overcome them, but use them as opportunity to even become bigger and become more robust and become more successful as a director.
Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Samson Simon, the Chief Economist, ARKK Economics and Data Limited. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.